Okay, it is a very gloomy day here in California, but we're just going to put up with this because, man, do I have a video for you guys today. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Emily and this is the Astral Library. And like I said, it's a gloomy day here in California, so I apologize for the kind of mood lighting going on. But I have a fun video for you guys today that is chock filled with recommendations. So this is the start in like a mini series I'm doing called Beginner's Guide to Whatever. In today's episode, we're doing Beginner's Guide to Graphic Novels because I don't know about you, but every now and then I like to switch up my reading. Sometimes I just can't read a book full of text. My brain is tired from school, from life, and just from overload in reading. So sometimes I just need something that's a little easier, whether that be with manga or webtoons or, of course, graphic novels. So if you're not a graphic novel reader, I hope you turn to this video to find some recommendations in genres that you already enjoy. So I'm going to split this up into a few different genres and give you guys some options between a standalone book you can just try out and a longer series if you've maybe tried a couple graphic novels and you want to dive into something that has a bit more of an expansive universe. So let's go ahead and just jump straight in. So we're gonna start where I'm comfortable at, which is of course fantasy. So I'm a huge fantasy nerd, as you know, as you've seen through my shelves. Most of my collection is in fact fantasy. And so let's go ahead and just start in that genre. So the first recommendation I have for you is Squire by Sarah, and I apologize so much if I mess up this last name, Alpha G and Nadia Shamas, which is the author and illustrator for this standalone graphic novel series. So this is very much a book that gives me fantasy and even D&D vibes. So in this story, we are following our main character, Isa, who dreams of becoming a knight. But between Isa and her dream is the fact that she is Ornu, which is a group of colonized people that has been recently conquered by the kingdom of Bayat Saji. And it is the only thing that is really allowing her to become, because they do not treat the Ornu very well and they treat them again as second-class citizens. So Isa not only wants to become a knight because she dreams of that glory, but it is her only way to get citizenship. And so she enrolls herself into squiredom while hiding her identity as an Ornu. Not everything goes according to plan as she's getting deeper and deeper into her squire training and learning how to become a knight. She's learning more and more about the corruption of the Bayat Empire as well as the corruption going on in the knights. If you want to just like dip your toes in to see what graphic novels looks like in terms of a fantasy setting, because there is a sort of magic system going on in this, I highly recommend it. It's so interesting, it's so good. The art, let's see if I can find something that's not too spoilery, is so pretty. I love the colors, I love the representation in this, I love that we're basing this in a non-Roman like empire, and again we get that political intrigue as well as that kind of fantastical element. Great place to start if you want to dip your toes into graphic novel fantasy. Now the second pick I have is very much a D&D vibe. In fact, it is based on a D&D podcast. You've heard me talk about it before, you know how much I love it, and that of course is The Adventure Zone by the McElroys and illustrated by Carrie Pietsch. So the brilliant thing about this is not only is it a graphic novel with some amazingly like colorful art, but if you are an audiobook person, you want to experience this story through audio format, it's got you covered. There's 70, I want to say something like 70 to 72 episodes of this campaign that they do. So what is the Adventure Zone? The Adventure Zone is a D&D campaign following our three main characters, Merle Highchurch, Taco, and Magnus Burnside. And their many various adventures as they get caught up in what is known as the Bureau of Balance, which is an organization that is trying to reclaim these super powerful artifacts that are scattered around the world that are causing chaos and drawing people into their powers. And mysteriously, Taco, Magnus, and Merle are the only ones who are able to withstand the temptation of these artifacts and carefully reclaim them. This is one of my favorite stories ever. Like point blank and period. The story that Griffin crafted for this campaign and the just emotional weight behind these characters was so good. I've listened to the Adventure Zone Balance at least 4 times. I got my dad to listen to the Adventure Zone, and even he was like, oh my god, Emily, this is so good, because it's so good. But the more the story gets going and the more we learn about Merle, Taco, and Magnus, the more we learn to see like the depth of their characters and the depth of this world and the depth of the plot, that not everything is as it seems and there's so many twists and turns. I loved it. So it is not a completed series in its graphic novel format, but if you are really enjoying the story and you really want to continue on, these are pretty faithful adaptations to the actual podcast that they do. So if you read all these books and tear through them and you want more, that medium's always available to you where you can actually finish it. Okay, you might be like, Emily, I am not super into that type of fantasy. Sometimes I just like a little bit of a romance. So my next category for you is fantasy romance, not to be confused with romantasy. I don't have a lot of graphic novels for that yet. If you know any, leave some in the comments down below. I'm always interested in that. But we're just gonna go blanket term fantasy romance. So these are set in more fantastical worlds or have some more fantastical elements, but really feature a romance at the forefront of the story. So the standalone recommendation I have for you is The Girl from the Sea by Molly Knox Ostertag. This is a sapphic fantasy romance where I guess you might call this more of a paranormal romance because we're set mainly in our world, but we have a paranormal element with a mermaid, which is perfect for May, you know, mermaid, here and ready for you in graphic novel form. So this is a sapphic love story about our main character, Morgan, who is almost about to graduate high school, and she wants nothing more than to leave the island where she's grown up her entire life. It's her one dream to kind of like spread her wings and never be around this place again that kind of knows everything about her. Half the reason for that is that Morgan is hiding the fact that she is gay, that she does not want to date boys, she wants to kiss girls, which she does not feel comfortable sharing in her small town. But one night, Morgan goes out in the water and ends up almost drowning, and she is saved by the mysterious girl, Kelty, who is hiding secrets of her own. It's a great love story between them. It was so sweet, it was so cute. I loved every second of this. Again, this is another graphic novel where the art is just simply gorgeous and really, really colorful, which I feel add to kind of not only just the vibe of like this cover and just kind of add to the vibrancy of the story. Now you're like, okay, I'm like, give me something longer, give me that series. And do I have one of my favorite series for you ever? And that of course is Lore Olympus by Rachel Smith. I'm sure you've heard about Lore Olympus. This is not a series that is been kept on the down low. Everyone talks about it because it is, in my opinion, it is the Persephone romance retelling. This is the one I crave. It's the one I enjoy the most. And it's perfect. It's perfect. I love the characterization of Hades and Persephone in this. I love the artwork in it. It's so beautiful, just like colorful and smooth and just draws you in from page one and from these beautiful covers. It's also super accessible to anyone who is a fan of Hades and Persephone or anyone who's just a fan of like a good romance story. This is an epic romance story. It is still ongoing, but there are currently 6 volumes out. 6 volumes out with the 7th coming out later this year in October, I believe. And it is still continuing in the webtoon format. So again, if you run out of volumes to read, we've got you covered. There's still more story for you to read, babes. So like I said, this is a Persephone and Hades romance retelling, and we are following Persephone, who is coming to Olympus for the first time in her life after living a very sheltered and privileged childhood on Earth with her mother. And she is going to college in Olympus and trying to figure out what she wants to do. She's not quite sure of who she is. She doesn't quite have control over powers, but she knows she wants to spread her wings outside of the confines of her mother. And so she moves in with her friend Artemis, who ends up taking to her party one night where all the gods are glitz and glam and she runs into none other than Hades, who becomes infatuated with her the moment he lays eyes on her. It's a beautiful love story between them. I don't want to tell you too much more of what happens because it's been such a journey to see them get together and get to the point of where they are now. I want you to experience that. If you love a great slow burn romance where it's not about one party being perfect or one party being better than the other and they're just loving each other flaws and alls and loving them to kind of uphold their own dreams and power, you need to read Lore Olympus. Their relationship, again, has been so beautiful to see developed, and to watch Persephone come into herself and watch Hades come into himself and learn to be this like ultimate power couple. It's been chef's kiss. Rachel's done such an amazing job in this story and in this webtoon. I will say that are some darker themes in this. We do have themes of misogyny, of sexual assault, societal expectations, parental issues, everything you can name it's kind of in this book. Even though this is a romance, at the heart of it is women empowerment and women's independence beyond the men they may or may not be married to. All right, you might be saying, Emily, I'm not too much of a fantasy girly. I don't really care for it. I'm more of a sci-fi person. Don't you worry, I got some recommendations for you too. So the next category I have for you is just sci-fi recommendations. So these may be taking place in space, taking place on various planets, dealing with aliens and other creatures, all that shebang, okay? The first one I have, of course, is our standalone. Be warned, this is a chunky one. So it's a great standalone if you want to dive into, have a very expansive world to dive into in character development. And that is On a Sunbeam by Tilly Walden. Now, like I said, she's chunky. She's so chunky. And this is one of the first graphic novels I ever read myself. I picked this up when I was visiting my brother in Colorado, and I read this all in a day. Like, I was supposed to be visiting, hanging out with my brother and his kids, and I was sitting on the couch reading this book. I could not put it down. It was so cute. It's so good. It is also a sapphic love story. Everything Tilly Walden writes is sapphic, and I love her for that. It's so cute. It's so good. And there's so much great development. Specifically, we are following Mia, who is kind of at a point in her life where she's feeling a bit lost. So she has just joined this restoration crew and she doesn't quite know where she belongs. But as she's on this planet, she is thinking about her life during her time at a boarding school where she met a girl and she started to fall in love. So in this book, we are following our main character, Mia, who is just joining this restoration space crew who goes to various planets to kind of restore old buildings that have been kind of crumpled down into ruins. But as she's kind of going about and working on this restoration project, she is reminiscing about her time at boarding school where she met and fell in love, the girl of her dreams. And they seemed so happy together until one day they weren't, and they ended up breaking up, only for them to be reunited on this planet many, many years in the future. And Mia is left to kind of scramble with her feelings. This is very much a book that is taking place in two different timelines, but I found it really easy to follow along. It was never unclear of what point in time we were on, and it's a very slow burn of a romance. But by the time we reach the end of the story, you really feel for the characters, and you really are rooting for their relationship, despite all the pain that was in their past. Okay, the second sci-fi pick I have for you, again, is part of a longer series, and that, of course, is Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. So the one I have right here is the deluxe bind up. So it has quite a few volumes into one, which I'm so happy for. It's hardcover. It's huge. Like, it's bigger than my head. I've only read the very first volume of this, so I haven't read everything in this particular volume, but my God, that first volume blew me away. So Saga follows the epic story between Alana and Marco, who are two opposite warriors from these warring planets, Marco from the moon and Alana from the home planet of Landfall. And their planets and their societies have been at war with each other for eons. And Marco and Alana were two of the key soldiers, and somehow they fall epically into love, and they decide to defect together and end up having a baby, which has made them the target of both sides because no one wants them to know that Alana's people and Marco's people are able to reconcile and be friends in any way, let alone to have children together. So Saga follows the story of them kind of not only having and growing their family as they're on the run, but picking up strays along the way. We end up getting a ghost teenager to kind of act as a babysitter for our precious little baby, various other colorful casts, as they're kind of trying to survive, not only in a hostile world that wants to see them dead, but also to ensure that their child gets to live a peaceful life without being hunted down by either of their home planets. I love this story. It's so funny. The art, again, is just so colorful and vibrant, and again really adds to the sci-fi-esqueness of the story. It's a very, very long series. It's a very beloved series. There's 10 volumes in total in the single editions. I think there's about 3 or 4 of these giant editions. So there's plenty for you to kind of sink your teeth into. It is still ongoing, a lot to kind of consume and more to consume in the future. All right, let's bring it back. Maybe you're not a sci-fi person. Maybe you're not a fantasy person. Maybe you're just like, Emily, I want story set in this world. I got you. The next category we have is contemporary romance. Specifically, the ones I have recommended are contemporary romance that feature LGBTQIA+ couples. So I have one standalone for this one, one duology and a longer series. So the first one I have is Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me by Rosemary Valero O'Connell. This is another one of those graphic novel series that I started with, and I hold in my heart. It has a very high place. I love the colors of this one. We have this like pink motif throughout the entire book. It's really pretty. The story is very good because we're following kind of a toxic relationship where we have Laura Dean and Freddie, who are in this on again, off again relationship that Freddie seems to not be able to let Laura Dean go, even though she is making her miserable. So we are following the relationship throughout this entire book as they're on again, off again, and Freddie's trying to realize, what does she really want in this relationship with Laura Dean? Does she want to continue pursuing this and having this tumultuous relationship where she's not happy? Or is she ready to finally let go? It is a story of self-discovery. It is a story about, again, a toxic relationship and learning how to break free of these abusive cycles that are not helping anyone. The next recommendation I have for you, again, is a duology, one of my favorite duologies. I owe my friend Twin for reading this book, and that is Check Please by Ngozi Ukazu. So this book is perfect for any of my like sports romance girlies because we are following a hockey team in this one. So in the story, we are following Eric, who we lovingly know as Biddy, and he is a former figure skater that has joined Samuel University. But unfortunately, Samuel does not have an ice skating team, but they do have a hockey team. And so Biddy decides to try out because why not? Unbeknownst to Biddy, the captain of this hockey team is none other than Jack Zimmerman, who is a kind of a legacy in the hockey world where his dad was a very famous hockey player and Jack is projected to be much of the same. Biddy and Jack do not get off on the right foot, especially because Biddy has this fear of being checked. And so he has to learn not only to toughen up a little bit to kind of get along with these hockey bros, but also trying to deal with his ever-growing crush on Jack, who he doesn't even know if he's gay or not. The sweetness of this story is so cute. It's so emotional at times. I remember like physically like my heart hurting because of the like angst between Jack and Biddy, but also just having it heal every chapter because Biddy is such a sweet protagonist and funny because not only is he this really flexible and amazing ice skater, but he is learning to toughen up and be part of the hockey bros. But also Biddy hosts a baking blog, so every now and then he like talks to us, the audience, as if we're watching his blog or watching these videos, and it's so cute and amazing. Again, highly recommend it if you're a huge contemporary romance fan, but especially if you're a contemporary sports romance person. Okay, the last contemporary romance pick I have for you is a longer series. This one is going to be 6 volumes long. Currently, there's only 5 volumes released, and that is another beloved series here on BookTube. And that, of course, is Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. This is another contemporary romance where we are following Nick and Charlie. So in this book, we are following Nick and Charlie, who are 2 high school boys in the UK who are in like the last couple of years of high school. Specifically, we are following Charlie as our main protagonist, who is kind of shy and quiet and had a rough year the previous year. And when he joins his homeroom, he is sat next to Nick, who is this rugby player that is very outgoing and spoken, and they quietly form a friendship that quickly turns into more, or as Charlie develops a crush for Nick. However, Nick has no idea if he even likes boys like that, and so we are following their very, very cute romance as Nick is exploring his own sexuality and Charlie is battling kind of the trauma and the self-image issues that the previous year really left him with. This is a very, very cute series that is very wholesome and very much is on the lighter side. This is not a tragic LGBTQIA story whatsoever, even though there are some harder hitting issues in this, like self-body issues, self-image issues, as well as eating disorders, and themes of mental health are all talked about in this series. So just keep an eye out on those trigger warnings, but I do promise that this is a very light story. It is not tragic in any way, and it is very much about these 2 boys falling in love and having this really sweet relationship and learning to overcome their own internal struggles. Okay, last category. Maybe you're like, Emily, I'm not into any of those things. All right, I got a last ditch effort for you. Maybe you're into classics. Maybe you've already read things and you're like, I just want to like experience those again. So the next category I have for you is adaptations. So these are things that have been their own works, so some things like classics, or they're continuing stories from other completed works. The first I have for you is not a standalone, but it is only 2 books long, and that is Wires and Nerve by Marissa Meyer. So this is the graphic novel adaptation and continuation of the Lunar Chronicles series. So if you are a fan of Cinder by Marissa Meyer and that, again, the Lunar Chronicles series, this is following Inko, the android that is Cinder's companion through the series that has her own kind of like innate sense of fashion and personality that you fell in love with in the entire book. We are following her for 2 books as she is being a badass in her own right and actually hunting down a rogue pack of werewolves. So something to be mindful of when you read this story is that it is going to spoil the events of the Lunar Chronicles series because this does take place after the events of those. So this is definitely something that if you finished those books recently or you've loved that world and you just wish you had more, this would be a great place to start because it is continuing the events. And we do see all our favorite characters make an appearance at least once in these 2 books. All right, and the very last thing I have for you is just to go out and find a graphic novel that is an adaptation of a classic. So there's a ton of these out there, but the one I have here is The Handmaid's Tale, adapted by Renee Nolte. The Handmaid's Tale is a beloved classic for a reason, and especially in this tumultuous world we're living in, it's more needed than ever because it is a warning against the kind of pitfalls of a very, very patriarchal society that is delegating women into lesser roles in society. I had the privilege of teaching this book in my winter English class, and it was so much fun. I found the story super compelling as someone who has never read Handmaid's Tale, but even my students who have read the novel and have seen the TV show also really fell in love with this graphic novel adaptation. It's just a way to breathe life into a classic that you maybe have loved or that you've maybe been really intimidated to read. Graphic novels are a good way to kind of break those stories down in a way that's more manageable, that you're not going to be freaking out, that has all this like hoity-toity language that you're maybe not familiar with, or that you're just like overwhelmed by these sides of it. The Handmaid's Tale is not a super long book, but even in the graphic novel format, it is even shorter, which is a lot more manageable than reading 400 pages of quote-unquote classic literature. But again, if you're just getting into graphic novels and you love classic stories, or again, if you've been really intimidated by classic, grab the graphic novel version. There's a ton of them that exist. There's ones for Kindred by Octavia Butler. There's ones for a graphic novel of Dune. There's one of To Kill a Mockingbird. Tons of them out there. There's Shakespeare one. Classic graphic novels are a great option to start with. All right, but that's all I have for you guys. I hope you found some recommendations for this video and you think about picking up a graphic novel. They're so much fun and a great way to spice up your reading so you're not reading the same things over and over again. And it's just a good way to like break out of a reading slump. Just try something new that doesn't involve a lot of commitment because again, a lot of these books are really short and easy to get through. But again, that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, consider leaving a thumbs up and a comment down below. Let me know what graphic novels you are interested in. Or if you've never read a graphic novel, what has kept you from it for so long? I'd love to hear from you guys. Always an absolute joy to kind of talk and get to know you more. I love this little community we built here on my channel, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next video. Bye!